All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this February 18th, 2025 Cross-Project Council meeting. There are a few of us today because I think TC39 has a whole bunch of things going on at the same time this week. Hence the low attendance, but we'll still get through the agenda. And we'll block some time for a private call at the end of today's meeting. So if you haven't added your names to the doc, I'm going to paste it again in the chat. Please do so now. And we'll start off with any announcements. Do we have any announcements?
Well, I can make a plug for JSConf. You'll start to see some communication from us in a couple of weeks. Ticket sales will start being rolled out. Sponsorship sales are open. So those of you who have sponsored already, thank you. Like Ethan at Harper, thank you. Volt has come through, and we have a number of others in the hopper. So please, yeah, you can go to jsconf.com and you'll find us, or you can go to the LF events page.
So I see a question from Jean asking about CFP
Yeah,
announcements.
CFPs will come in a couple of months.
Thank you. All right. Yep. Awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. And just one thing, just for members, OpenJS members, corporate members, and then maintainers of our projects, you'll get early bird tickets set aside for you all. So we'll let you have a couple of days head start.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yes.
It's wonderful to hear. Also remembering how fast JSConf tickets tend to go.
Yes. So it's gonna be a good one.
All right. Okay, staff updates. I looking at the list now. So do we have anything waiting on board? No, we don't. Waiting on legal. We still have a couple of things here. Requirements for projects releasing internal projects to third-party contributors. Requirements for projects ingesting other existing external projects, and IP policy license exemption for loopback. Any updates on any of these? I can share the link in the
I know
in the chat
loopback is
here.
flipped back to IBM, who's working on that with their legal team. And I think the other two, we still probably need more information from Andy and team.
All right, and then I think the other ones are staff updates. Continuity policy for package registries. I think this was waiting on a staff update for some reason.
No, it's in progress. I opened up an NPM account for folks to add, but I think we still have some work to do there.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I've been trying to wrestle.
It's been interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So we were trying to transfer the hospital run accounts to OpenJS. I was using that kind of as an example, and then I could document what happened there. It just didn't work. So they would share the packages with me, and I would get an invite link from NPM. I would click that link and I would get an error. So we're kind of going back and forth, and I asked them to file a ticket with NPM because it seems like something on their side, and it's not something I didn't want to file the ticket because it's a request from them to transfer to me, right? So I didn't want it to feel like a weird social engineering thing. But yeah, as soon as we figure that out, we'll try to work on this. But yeah, that was happening last week.
All right, wonderful. I'll just put a note in the issue.
Yeah.
Issues, what, transferring the account or the project or the package? The package?
Call it package, yeah.
Oh. Maintain.
I just want to call out transferring the package is probably not a good idea. So we've been going through this with Express a little bit because we, had the same kind of situation. Jordan helped set up a couple of orgs. We've been doing that. And the hesitancy about transferring the package is that means the account, the org, so this would be, in this case, OpenJS org account, would have publish rights. And that's problematic for a number of reasons. But if you have the foundation account on the org, it doesn't have to have publish rights. So like the most like problematic example or easiest to like describe here is socket.dev's scanning. We'll actually report packages with new folks who have publish rights as supply chain security risks. And they are, and in this case, it's actually worse because now the OpenJS account would be like the juiciest target on the ecosystem. So we should probably get a little bit of guidance here beyond just transfer the package. It's fine if that's the start, because that then gives you the ability to go and set up all the orgs and all the other stuff. But that should not be the end state if we can help it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like for hospital run, like we're winding down the project. So in that scenario, we actually do want publishing rights because no one else does.
Well, okay. So
But different.
We want the foundation to have the ability to grant publishing rights to an individual.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right? Or a bot. Actually, in this case, a bot is probably best because then we could have a new contributor on board without it being, a bunch of, juggling accounts and stuff like that. The bot would then need to, when I say bot, I mean an account that is a non-human, like not somebody who's logging in. And anyway, yeah, there's probably a little bit of complexity here that's worth figuring out before we call anything complete.
Yeah, agreed.
So, if I may interject here, as part of my work on the CRA, I've been leveraging the document that the Security Collab Space has created last year on SBOMs. This looks like an area where having such a document and having some, like, I don't want to call them policies, but like explicit sort of like a list of the concerns and like what it is that you're trying to achieve and the threat model around each of them, etc., would be incredibly useful to leverage in other conversations. And so I'm wondering if this couldn't be something that would be brought to the Security Collab Space and discussed there and have like some kind of doc created as a result of this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
All right, I'm seeing lots of nodding here. How do we concretely do this? I have an issue, number 1355. Do we move it to the collab space? Do we create a new issue in the collab space? Like, what's the...
I think, yeah, I mean, there isn't a lot of meat in this issue.
No.
So like I'd be okay just creating a new issue in the collab space and referencing this one.
Is this something that Rudd and Raphael can work on as part of
I
the
think so.
contract?
Yeah.
That's what I would
I think that would be amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's absolutely worth having someone who's driving this that's on staff, or at least like,
Yeah.
Please, Wes.
Actually, I think Raphael is already, so you might want to look at the work he started. He opened an issue, I believe yesterday, but it may have been late last week, for Fastify to help get some publishing, like credential rotation stuff. And then he opened a corresponding issue for Express to look at this. There's a unfortunate lack of support for some things that I think would really make this well done. So it may be that we start with some have to start with some, you know, best effort improvements, and then say if your org is in a position or if your team is in a position to take the extra mile, you can. So for example, we're going to be, Jean is I think on the call, right? Yeah. Hey, I tagged you in on that issue, by the way. I don't know if you'd seen it yet. But going to be doing some like automation around our releases that ties in pretty tightly with how you manage access control for Express over the next, I don't know when you're committing to do that, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know it's, you know, STF funded, so it's going to be over the next year and a half. And so anyway, I think between Raphael and Jean and us on the Express side, I think there's probably a fair number of folks who want to work on this in the next year.
Yep, really quickly, definitely that's one of the, on my side, one of the main priority. So should be able, when the STF is done, at least sign and everything, to one of the core topics that I will be starting in a couple next months. So not even 1.5 years, but let's say April, May, June, maybe. I hope to have a good way to solve that and to not use Relay token that will be completely lost or not safe. So yeah.
All right, so I'm filing a new issue in the collab space, linking back to this, and if you can, I'll put it in the chat here, and if you can like tag the right people in it, that would be incredibly useful. Best practices policy for package manager continuity, something like this. Would that work?
I like the word recommendation over best practices. Yeah.
Right, recommendations for package manager continuity, and then it would be the issue, and I'll just add it there and like please tag the right people.
Yeah, I'll tag him in.
Oh, singular. Sorry, I made multiple recommendations. All right, cool. And feel free to just edit anything, the title, the content, like whatever it is that you want to edit. And actually, I'm going to link it back. Well, it's going to auto links to the other one. All right, cool. Anything else in that waiting on staff? I think that was the main one, right?
Just quick personal update, the fire department's here today testing our smoke alarms for the building, so they may either enter my premise or start blasting it. So if I mute out, it will be for a big reason.
And then the other one, Ben, which you briefly touched upon, was the hospital run project. And I think this is, I imagine, just waiting on this too, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. Okay, and then I think with this, we can move into the main part of today's agenda, right? Anything waiting on website updates? I don't think so. Nope. All right. And board updates, none either, right? Just as far as I know. All right, so issue number 1419, and this is make sure GitHub Teams for voting in regular CPC members is accurate. I actually don't know what this issue is. All right, so apparently there, if I look at the issue, there could be, Joe opened this, apparently someone who is a CPC member didn't have right access or triaging access to the So maybe there's something that's slightly out of sync here. Or
We rarely use the voting list. It's only really for board seats, so maybe it was a CPC regular member they were thinking of. Which is quite fluid sometimes.
so does that mean that we might have CPC members who are not on the team? Do we
Our
need to check this?
So we have CPC private mailing list. We have a list on GitHub, and those two lists should match. So we can run another pass through it and just make sure.
It also could be that maybe someone's a member, but then wasn't added to the team. And so it could be an issue.
Or their email or their employer changed, and we might have had an old email. That happens occasionally.
What action items here? Should we ask Joe to privately share who that person is so we can check it?
That would be
Because
ideal.
Because my understanding from this is like a one-off problem, not a structural problem.
Yeah, I think I only had one bounce back from the list I sent out for our difficult conversations workshop, so.
It's
Okay.
not a bad idea to review the GitHub teams. Just that's not hard to do, just to double check that those are all accurate. I mean, it's completely possible that an update was missed or someone was not removed or something like that, since it's manual.
So someone has to do this, and this can be like it's a few subset of people that can actually do this. I don't know that I have that. Yeah, I guess I have that access. I'm not sure. Is this something that you would be able to do, Ben, or is
Yeah,
this, or do
I
you have
can
the
do that.
time, the bandwidth to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I throw two lists into ChatGPT and say, tell me the differences.
Okay, that works. All right.
I can help Ben, because I just eyeballing, I can see one who I don't know if they've been active or if we have that person, but
Yeah, there might be some questions that we'll come up with, but yeah.
I think I have a
But
lot in my head.
the other thing is like GitHub teams, I find a little confusing, especially when it
You
comes
don't say.
to permissions. So like this isn't a bad idea, like to just double check that a little bit too. Like I am surprised that someone couldn't add a label. That seems weird.
I mean, if you're not a part of a team, you can't add a label, full stop.
Yeah. Interesting.
You
Okay.
have to have like triaging rights.
Triage permissions. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so you have to be part of the organization for that.
Yeah. And it depends on what your default permissions are for the repo. So yeah, there's a
Of course.
whole like
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right, cool. Wonderful. So I've added those. And let's move to 1418. Yeah, so this is the new plan of action that Michaela created for us last I don't know, 10 days ago. And the plan was to work on it in a working session last week, but then we didn't because no one showed up at the working session, which was like I don't know what happened. It was a first, I think. And so we're gonna do it on the next working session, right? So I guess like really the only thing that there is here to do is next working session for this one, right? Oof. I'm not sure what happened with the This was 1417, is that right? Oh no, I'm entirely sorry. I mixed up two different issues, I think. There's God. There's 1418 and 1417. Okay, I grazed over 1418. So 1418 is a pull request that I opened because some people were having a hard time finding the right COC email address. And I think that one is just waiting on enough time to just get merged. 1418, that is. Yeah, so it's 2 weeks ago. I think it can just be merged.
Agreed.
So I'll just go ahead and merge it. All right, so that's done. And then we can go to the one that I thought I was talking about, which is
Toby, Michaela
14.
had her hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Please.
I ended up putting it down. I think, thank you for whoever provided the spacing between the issues. I just also misclicked between issues and confused them.
Anything else you wanted to share, or it was just a... Right. So the issue that I was talking about is 1417. I'm sorry for the confusion, which is this one. And my understanding is we'll work on this in the next working session. Is this shared by folks here? Yes? All right, cool. All right, sorry for the confusion. All right, and so this then becomes that. Working in next working session. Previous one was merged.
Sorry, I was trying to
All
catch
right.
up on reading that issue just to be sure. I'm wondering, one thing we've been trying to figure out for the projects is what's the best way to start setting up some of these things for ourselves. And I'm not, this only applies to the CPC, right? Just making sure I'm understanding correctly.
Which issue are we talking about now?
Yeah. Not 1718. 1417. So which is
Right,
the
so
code of conduct action plan, the one you had said. Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the scope, because I'm not sure I do yet.
the scope of the whole issue?
Is the goal for broadly how we deal with the code of conduct for the foundation, or is it including the projects?
So I'm not sure in the specific issue itself, but the idea is that both are very much the same thing. And I mean, was there exceptional carve out that some projects can self handle violation of conduct reports? Robin?
Yeah, I think it is sort of one and the same. I mean, except for any exceptions, which are kind of a case by case basis, but the CPC sets the code of conduct policy, which then cascades through the projects.
Michaela, please.
Yeah, I would say in specific for the issue itself, when going over the remaining items, it all looks to seem to be updates on the CPC side. So I would say if there's any specific initiatives to either reach out to projects specifically in requesting them to update things on their end, that should probably be an additional issue or some sort of additional wording to one of these issues, because it seems pretty clear that each of the issues pertain to things specifically on the CPC side.
Wes?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for the clarification. I do think, though, this might, so if the general idea, the goal rather, is that projects are not seeking exceptions, which we are not, that we, like, I say we, sorry, Express. I was speaking on Express's behalf for that, that we would like to use exactly, like, leverage exactly what the CPC is saying is our sort of, foundation baseline for everything. That we should, as projects, either make sure somebody comes to that so that we can make sure we're aware and helping, shape and drive that, or at least be aware of it so that we can then adopt it, I guess is where I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. But just to be clear, though, these are really sort of like leftovers from the whole code of conduct plan of action that we had like about 18 months ago at this point, I think. And it's really sort of like closing the loops and like tying like loose strings on a bunch of things. And so really nothing in there should be a surprise or something new. If we look at it, like item one is essentially kind of caters to the topic that you just raised now, which is onboarding orgs should actually know what's expected of them, and we should spell it out a bit clearer for them, right? Item two is a discussion about updating contributor covenant from 2.0 to 2.1. That essentially, if I remember correctly, like is 1 or 2 words in the whole text. I think it adds like some very, very specific like language around like very specific things. And then the second issue to that second part, which is sub issue 2, is um, the contributor covenant is designed for a single project, and so it creates some form of confusion because it's a foundation level one. And so kind of what is the project like would need to be improved. And then like item 3 is a discussion as to whether we should keep the COC where it is or move it to the .github repo of the CPC thing. So really, there isn't anything that should be significant for any project that hasn't been already sort of like there for a while and like communicated a while ago. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure that's true, though, because I think we link directly to the code of the covenant 2.1 or whatever. So I think there's probably at least a little bit to make sure we follow.
I mean, you link to the one that's in the CPC, I assume.
I don't think so. This
Well,
is the next stuff. I'm just not sure.
Absolutely. So you absolutely should. And if you're not, then you should fix that.
Okay, good to know. This is a great thing to do some evangelism from the CPC down to the projects, because I am not entirely sure
No, I
about
absolutely
that message
agree.
before. Yeah.
I absolutely agree, and I think we've went over this. This is kind of like an aside, but I think it's a important one, and we kind of like go back and forth on this on regular occasions, right? Which is, oh, we need to actually tell projects about this, right? But at the same time, like the whole point of having a CPC and having members of every project in it, right, or like representatives of every project in it, is precisely that it is the forum where we have these conversations, right? And so it's kind of like I'm with you and I'm also not, both at the same time, and I don't really. I think the conclusion we always kind of end up coming to is the whole point is like people should show up and like be part of these conversations. And that we also don't have the resources to do like the level of evangelism that would be necessary to make a difference. And so we kind of like kind of tend to err on that side. And I welcome like other thoughts on this topic, but that's kind of where we are in general.
Makes sense. Yeah. Maybe when these checklists are done, maybe just a simple email that says, hey, if you haven't seen our guidance, here's the, guidance to the mailing list, might be a low effort way. I understand I'm seeing this now where there's like a few wrap up items and I'm going, I don't know if we followed that correctly. But I don't know if anybody set out to like go do an audit of what we had versus what the guidance was. So it's possible that, you know, one email
So, I
is
mean,
enough to like trigger projects to go, oh, I should go check that, you know?
so this is another sort of like ongoing conversation where it's easier to get new projects to adopt like best practices when it comes to linking to the code of conduct, or you know, having like the right security .md in place, and all of these different things, right? It's a lot harder to get that from projects that haven't joined yet. And so we definitely tried to move this, but it's a lot more work. So I would say that for this particular issue, like working session next week to try to and finish 14-17. And I'm not sure like where to capture sort of like raising awareness around these issues, or how to do that. Maybe in the issue itself.
I'm opening an issue in our project tracker right now just to do it for
I
ourselves.
love that.
I mean, that's the joy of having somebody who's on the project come to the meeting, which doesn't
Ta-da!
really the problem other than, you know, for us. But yeah, seems to me like a last like line item on that to just say, figure out a next step for making sure folks are aware that we've made these updates would be good in that same issue.
So I'm just gonna add, like, would be nice to do some evangelizing around the CPC policy updates once this is wrapped up. All right, and I'll add this. God, this is. All right. Travel fund budget. This was 1412.
John had a comment on the last issue in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so sorry. Do we want to try to enforce and to write something on GitHub Action just to be able to scan all code of conduct file of every project, because it's standardized, to check if they link to the right one, a bit the same way as in the, I think it's on the CPC, there is a link checker on every pull request or something.
Yeah, we turned it off because it was so much of a pain. So
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying.
I mean, there's this other thing, which is like, would it be possible to automatically verify the items in the CPC project onboarding, just in general? So as things pop in and out, we add a test to ensure that all of our projects are on board, rather than trying to do it manual.
It is a pretty manual process, like checking the footers of their websites to make sure they have the right links, where they're linking to their code of conduct and things like that. Those are some of the big ones.
I don't know. I think I don't have a recommendation, because I would want to review what our requirements are and how many of those are easily verifiable automatically.
It's actually quite challenging, because depending
Yeah.
on the project, whether it's a single repository, multiple repository, you know, some of it are like the COC stuff. If you want to implement it yourself, has like policy requirements around it that are just like, you know, policy requirements. It's not like you have to
Yeah.
have that file here or whatnot, right? So there isn't that much standardized around this. It's a non-trivial problem to automate. You know, maybe in some future LLMs will be able to tell us this, but right now,
Maybe if we
Not
have
sure.
a new volunteer who would like to raise their hand, who's watching today.
Not exactly raising my hand per se, but I think a good first step before trying to come up with automation could just be trying to put together a checklist. If you can put together a checklist for this, then going to automation would be a next step. But if the steps are not there to begin with, then it's a bit of an uphill battle.
I mean, we have a checklist. It's the onboarding checklist, right?
Yeah, no, I think the question there though about like the changes and things that are made in 1417, like if those are reflected in the checklist in some way, um, or any changes that are made thereafter, like if that can be reflected in the checklist again for checking again, if that makes sense, or future checks. I'm assuming that's what the scan would do as well, is check multiple times.
That a checklist for the code of conduct specifically, yeah.
Okay, I'm a little confused about like the proposal here. But I mean, 1417 express like states that we want to add like those checks to the existing checklist. The problem is the checks are not verifiable easily automatically, and so should need like an actual person to look at them. We're already struggling to get projects that have been in the foundation like since the beginning to actually implement those. So, before we actually get into a mode of like checking this on a regular basis, just to verify if people, if projects are not weighing, sort of like moving away from them. We don't even have, a lot of projects haven't even implemented those. So it's a little challenging to do this with existing projects. But
Yeah,
yes,
so
totally agree that we don't need automation yet. Sorry. Please, I didn't mean to.
yeah, sorry, just responding to Wes in the chat here. So yeah, I think sort of along the lines of maybe like a change log or something like that. Definitely not automation, but updating the check, like if there's a central place that people are looking for what rules they should be following, updating that checklist with a, hey, you need to take a look at this sort of thing. And change log is the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I totally hear you. But right now it's really easy. Most projects have not implemented anything. And so the change log is the whole checklist. So sorry.
Gotcha.
I mean,
All good. Yeah, just throwing
I'm
things out
sorry.
there. Yeah.
But I really like the idea, but I think like like that's really the first step that we should do is get people on this. And then if people start actually paying attention to this, then we can absolutely do a checklist to get into like a a more organized way of making changes. But we don't do changes to this thing like very often, just to be clear. Like I think we had maybe like one or two since I've been involved in the foundation. So like one or two in years. Yeah. But yes, I love the idea, but like let's get people on the checklist in the first place. All right, let's move on because God, like we're way over time. So this was a kind of like a yes, exactly. I was going to move directly into this. I mean, I think this was an interesting session where we sort of veered a little bit on some topics, but I think it's also important to like actually talk about these other topics. And so unless there's anything urgent that we need to tackle today, I think we should move into a private session because there are urgent things that we need to tackle today, like pending requests from community members to get their travels funded. And so we'll need a private session to do this. And so I suggest that we move directly into this right now. And if I don't see any objections to this, I will essentially adjourn the public part of this meeting. Thanks everyone for showing up. And see you in a couple of weeks.